Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Dr. Joe Trebley with his talk titled, Discovering a Career. Dr. Joe Trebley is a biotech entrepreneur and commercialization expert specializing in early-stage life science companies and transformative medical innovations. As the founder and CEO of Monon Bioventures, Joe has led efforts to advance novel therapeutics, including his work with Scioto Biosciences, a company focused on microbiome-based therapies. With a PhD in medicinal chemistry and molecular pharmacology, Joe has guided dozens of startups, combining his scientific expertise and business strategy to bring life-changing therapies to market and improve the lives of patients. At Wabash, Joe was a chemistry major with minors in religion and business, a member of Phi Delta Theta, and a 3-year starter at defensive end. He lives in Fishers, Indiana with his wife Mary and 3 teenagers. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Joe Trebley.
Thank you, Luca, and thank you, Phi Delts, for the warm welcome. Thank you, the Sphinx Club, for inviting me here. I think maybe Dr. Fellow pointed out maybe the most interesting thing about me is that I'm the only student here that went out of the country to avoid taking a second semester of his PChem classes. So I spent that time in Scotland rather than here. I think he may still hold a grudge for that purpose. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here. I've been coming back regularly to campus for a couple decades, and I can say that this place is special. It's a place where all are welcome. It's a place where the community is not afraid to have difficult conversations and debates, and I truly hope that that continues. Wabash is the one place in my life where I've always left with more energy than I came with. And a big reason is because I always try and make a connection with the students. And that's really why I'm really honored to be here today to speak to you guys. You give me hope to the future, and I thank you for that. And you should have confidence in that. Speaking of students, let me plug a very exciting event tomorrow on campus. The 25th Annual Celebration of Student Research and Scholarship and Creative Work is tomorrow. The event is from 1:15 to 3:45 in Detchen, and this tradition started back when I was in school. This is the 25th anniversary of it. I know at Wabash we like to do things twice and call it a tradition. This is actually a tradition. So I really encourage you to come out and check on what your fellow students are working on, your professors, meet alums. And if you want to hear me talk again, I'm talking at 12:10 in Hayes 104 tomorrow. So my goal today is to inspire you in the spirit of the celebration of research. I want to inspire you to consider, as you make your upcoming career and life choices, to choose a path that encourages innovation and discovery. I believe discovery improves lives and can change the world. With all the power in this room, if I can convince just a few of you to direct your efforts and your energy towards discovery and innovation, I could, this morning, be changing the world. And I truly believe that, and I hope you'll consider. Innovation and discovery requires people that speak multiple languages of multiple disciplines, and I think that you are, as Wabash men, taught to think critically, act responsibly, lead effectively, and live humanely, and I think those are exactly the skill sets that I believe are required for innovations to reach their full potential. And I think in particular, Wabash men are good at what I call the in-between spaces. What I mean by that is, the in-between spaces between science and business, between artificial intelligence and education, law and space exploration, healthcare and economics, these things where you've got to be able to think critically across multiple disciplines and bring them together and lead them forward. And I think you guys are really well-tuned for that. And that's been my experience, not just in my career, but also in hiring and working with fellow Wabash men. How many of you know what you want to do with your lives? Notice Dr. Feller did not raise his hand. Not very many, right? And, I think even the ones that did raise your hand, you're probably wrong, right? But that's okay. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think the first step to a life of discovery is self-discovery. I grew up on a farm in Rushville, Indiana, about halfway between Indianapolis and Cincinnati. I learned a lot on a farm, did a lot of shoveling, baling, pulling tassels off the tops of corn. If you don't know what that is, consider yourself lucky. It taught me a lot, but really it taught me that I was a terrible farmer. And I needed to find another way to make a living. And I think that's important. Self-awareness is critical to finding your path. We're taught, especially as men, to constantly be pushing to show what we're made of. We have those like Jocko Willink and David Goggins suggesting we do, these heroic acts of discipline, and that if we don't, we're not enough. I call that intensity porn. And just like the regular kind of porn, it's exaggerated and not like real life. With respect to those two, though, I think it's more important to figure out not what we're made of, but what we're made for. Figuring out what we're made for requires a great deal more self-reflection and self-compassion than what we're made to believe. In my experience, a firm grip on reality, coupled with commitment and creativity, will get you further than some podcasters' definition of toughness. Working smarter, not harder, was even true on the farm. So I left the farm and came to Wabash College. My plan was to be a doctor or a lawyer, and why? Because that's what smart kids did. I didn't know any other professions. And I chose to major in chemistry because, well, it was hard. And I figured that an employer, if they saw I did well in a difficult major, that they would be impressed. I was right about that. Do hard things. It'll open doors for you. So I encourage you to think about that as you think about your strategies to become employed later or and to have success in life. Have a track record of doing well at hard things. As a student, I made a few good choices I think might be instructive to you. First thing I did was inquire about opportunities to do research on campus. Another hard thing, I knew biochemistry professor Ann Taylor had just joined the faculty and was starting her lab. I had one important question. I said, well, are the labs air conditioned? Yes, okay, it was already better than the job I had waiting for me back at home. So, I had a lot of reservations though, and mostly I was afraid I wasn't smart enough. And I bring this up because I think that fear and that thought is not uncommon, and there's probably many of you sitting here today thinking that you're not smart enough to do what you're intending to do. You are. If you're smart enough to get in here, you're smart enough to do what you're intending to do. Put another way, there are people that out there less smart than you that are having success in what you want to do. And once you get into the world, you'll realize that. But I didn't. I was fortunate enough to have a fraternity brother of mine, Pete Logan, when I was expressing my doubts. Now, Pete doesn't know anything about chemistry, but he knew me, and he told me in not so nice words, no, you can do it. Go do it. So I did. I applied, and Dr. Taylor must have been hard up for help that year because she gave me the job, and I escaped the cornfield, for that summer at least, and discovered a true interest and fascination with the idea that I could actually discover something that was previously unknown to anyone. That was life-changing realization for me. I encourage you to push yourself and go out of your comfort zone, explore opportunities that excite you, maybe even scare you a little. I made no significant scientific discoveries that summer. The field of biochemistry in soybeans was completely unmoved by my efforts. But I discovered something about myself that still motivates me to this day, and that was really valuable. The second good decision I made was to take Dr. Taylor's chemistry class, chemistry of cancer class the next year. By then I had decided against being a doctor or a lawyer and was interested in pursuing something in science. I didn't know what that was, but I really liked it. In that class, we had a guest speaker from the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Tom Roberts, class of 1970. Tom was in town for a homecoming to help celebrate a capital campaign. I was lucky enough to be assigned as a chaperone for Tom. I got to know him throughout the day and was able to show him some of my research that I've been working on. Hardly impressive, but I showed my commitment and my diligence. It was during a discussion I had, maybe over some beers, with President Andy Ford and Tom that changed my life. Andy, as he insisted on being called, asked Tom where he was from. Tom said, well, I grew up on the east side of Indianapolis, but I spent a lot of time in a little town called Rushville. Turns out, Tom's family farm was just a few miles from mine. And remarkably, a few weeks later, I received an email from Tom asking if I would come to Boston to do cancer research over the summer. I said yes. How did that happen? I suspect, but can't confirm, I had an angel in my corner in one of my religion professors, Dr. Bill Plaker, a classmate of Tom's. My suspicion remains because Dr. Plaker would always remind me that I would not have been able to have that opportunity if I wasn't from Rushville. You never know when your unique opportunity will come around. So I'll point out, none of this would have happened if I'd not left my room at the Fight-Out House playing video games. If I stayed in my room at the Fight-Out House playing video games, I would not have had this opportunity. Get out, talk to alums. You never know what's gonna open up, the doors are gonna open up for you. So I had a great time in Boston that summer. It was strange because I lived like a monk. I ordered textbooks in molecular biology and genetics because I had not had a biology class since my freshman year of high school. I showed up to lab eager and willing to work hard. Tom paired me with a great mentor, and the lab was pretty welcoming. I had some luck getting some early cloning experiments after I Googled what cloning was. I got a couple cloning experiments to work early in my internship, and I got a reputation for had golden hands. I did not carry that reputation to grad school. I lost it. I lost whatever that was. It was one early decision I made in my internship that I think really got me the support of the lab. The first week there, I was sitting in lab when I overheard a postdoc saying that they were moving their young family that weekend, and they were asking others in the lab to help. Well, my good Midwest instincts kicked in, and without even thinking about it, I said, I'd help, sure. Everyone looked at me like I was an alien. Why would this kid that doesn't even know us, help us move? And I said, I'm new in town. I don't have anything else to do. I'm happy to help. It'll get me out of the house. So I helped them move. It cost me a few hours on Saturday, but I got to know more members of the lab, and I made some friends and allies. Anytime I had a question, and I had a lot of questions, anytime I had a question or needed help that summer, everyone was there for me because they knew I would be there for them. The message here is that even in a high-pressure communities like research at Harvard, it still pays to be kind and helpful member of the community. Don't ever forget your better instincts. So I decided that summer I wanted to spend my life working to help leverage science and discovery to improve lives. I didn't exactly find what I wanted to do, but I had a direction. The work in the lab was fascinating, but that's not where I drew my inspiration. It was from two influences. The first was in the cafeteria of the lab where I worked. You see, the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute is part of a children's hospital. Located in Brookline, Massachusetts, it's part of a large medical complex where some of the sickest patients in the world go to be treated. Inpatient chemo is no joke. It's so hard they won't let you go home. They have to keep you hospitalized. It can be hell for anyone, especially young children. I would see these kids between their treatments in the cafeteria. It was probably a highlight of their day to get to leave their rooms, but they still looked shockingly ill. Their smiles couldn't mask their pain and fear. Seeing them, I thought, someone should do something. Then I realized that someone was me. I needed to get back to work. And I have never felt so motivated. I still remember those kids to this day. The second influence came from Tom. I didn't know it then, but academics tend to be stuffy and conservative in claims they make and in their intentions. Science is really hard, but Tom was one of and is one of the best at it. If you ask most scientists in academia what are their career goals, they'll tell you, get funded, publish, rinse, repeat. Hopefully I'll get tenure and I'll spend my life in a university. If you ask Tom what his goals were, he said, I am a knight on a quest to cure cancer. I am a knight on a quest to cure cancer. I loved and love everything about that. The quest to discover can improve lives, including your own. And fail or succeed, I was going in that direction. I wanted to be bold and aim for big things. I wanted to help those kids or patients like them suffering from challenges that are solvable. and they are solvable if we just have the commitment and the creativity to solve them. So I decided to go to grad school after graduation, but there's one other seed that we planted before I left Wabash. A friend of mine, Harsh Singh, and I were talking around the time of graduation, we were graduating, about what we're going to do. And he was in a number of my science classes, but he ended up taking a consulting job that was more business related. I asked him, how he thought he might combine the two, and he probably said a lot of things, but one thing he said stuck with me for years. Off the cuff, he said, "And I don't know, I might start my own biotech one day." I didn't know that was something someone could do, and I never considered it. But once again, a member of the Wabash community had helped me discover my path. And Harsh is now a very successful investor in medtech in Chicago. He's investing in discovery, and the seed he planted controls me like a virus to this day. And I'll share one story about grad school. I think the most impactful thing that happened to me was because of a failure. My grad programs, most of them, I went to Purdue University. There was a couple Wabash professors there, and my girlfriend went to Purdue, so that seemed like, she's now my wife. We have 3 beautiful children. Thank you. And so I went to Purdue, and like most graduate programs, you take some required classes and you have qualifying exams, and I crushed all of those. But we also you had to write and defend an original proposal. Well, to make a long story short, I failed my OP, and I was the only member of my 20-plus student cohort that did fail. I was crushed, embarrassed, angry, and I can still feel the shame today. It's almost as much as the shame of losing all 4 bell games when I was here. That tells you how much it hurt. So I had to rewrite, represent, and redefend the proposal. If I failed again, I was out of the program. By that time, I had realized that I was not a traditional graduate student. That entrepreneurial virus Harsh had infected me with was still sitting on my shoulder like a devil, saying, "We don't need this. Let's leave with a master's. Get a sales job. Make some real money." So I started applying for jobs, and while I was doing a postmortem with all my faculty members, and I had one foot out the door when one of those meetings revealed an opportunity to me. I explained to one of my committee members that I was interested in creating a career that combined science and business. He shared some of my entrepreneurial spirit, so he was glad to help. He told me about a fellowship that paired graduate students in science with MBA students at Cranard. Would I like to apply? Yes. It was perfect. I applied while completing and passing my OP. I got the fellowship, and for the next 2 years, I worked with MBA students learning about technology commercialization, and it led me to my first job out of grad school, and I haven't looked back. The lesson here is when you fail, and you will fail, people will tell you to keep your head up. It's good advice, but not because it makes you look like you're not suffering from shame and self-doubt. You keep your head up so you can see the opportunities, the new opportunities that are going to result from your new position. In every failure, there is opportunity. I love the quote by Rahm Emanuel, former chief of staff to President Obama and mayor of Chicago: "Never let a good crisis go to waste." So with the training I received, I finished my graduate work. I learned what it took to start and build a successful company. My career has gone through managing university intellectual property, venture capital. I've run a startup program at Indiana University, and now I'm an entrepreneur on my own. It never would have happened without that failure. I'm grateful for it. Most recently, I used those acquired skills, and honestly, it's more of an attitude than a combination of skills, to develop a novel for treatment for maladaptive behaviors associated with autism. I'm proud to tell you that after a few years and over $20 million, we've run our first successful clinical trial. Not only did we show improvement in behaviors, we also demonstrated that for the first time that a bacteria can regulate neuroendocrine signaling. That's a lot of big words, I know. Our drug is a bacteria you might know as a probiotic. It's found in breast milk, and it upregulates the bonding or love hormone, oxytocin, in humans. We're the first to show that. It makes sense. It's our first gift from mom. You get it through breast milk or through the vaginal canal, and it inspires the baby to bond with the mother. But I would encourage you not to think too deeply about that, because then you start to think, who's running the ship, us or the bugs? Stay tuned, we're trying to figure that out. I want to leave you with a story about discovery innovation that'll hit closer to home. It's a story about how discovery doesn't just cure sickness, discovery can lift up entire communities. It takes a village of bold, committed, and creative people to make progress, but the fruits of the labor are enormous. To drive that point home, I'd like to connect in your minds the Gia monster and that new dining hall we're building out there. Well, first, what's a Gia monster? Well, it's a big lizard, apparently. I never really heard of it. It's about 2 feet long and can weigh up to 5 pounds. I'm told it's the close relation to the Mexican bearded lizard, which I think I've seen one of those at the zoo. They're found in Southwest North America. It happens to be one of just a couple of venomous lizards in the world. I'm not sure why, but someone really wanted to study that venom. It got interesting, though, in the early 80s when someone discovered that the venom of the Gia monster had a chemical that looked a lot like, what's called in humans, glucagon-like peptide. See, the glucagon-like peptide has a role in metabolism, and everyone thought it might be a really good drug for diabetes, but the problem with these peptides is that they're terrible drugs. They're designed for a very tightly regulated, intricate system. They're released, serve their function, and then they quickly get torn up and go away. So that makes a terrible drug, but it's good for an intricate regulated system. However, nature had this figured out. In the evolution of the Gia monster venom, nature had made a peptide that served the same function as human glucagon-like peptide, but it lasted longer, making it an excellent candidate as a drug. In fact, a pharma company in Denmark called Novo Nordisk made it into a drug called Byetta. Byetta is used to treat type 2 diabetes. Sales of Byetta peaked for the finance bros in the room, sales of Byetta peaked in the mid-2000s at $700 million annually. But Novo and at least one other competitor were furiously working to discover ways to make it better. The holy grail would be to be able to treat obesity, a growing pandemic in the Western world. Novo went on to develop what are now called GLP-1 agonists, Wegovy and Ozempic. Ozempic was approved in 2018. In 2023, Ozempic alone accounted for 40% of Novo's sales at over $11 billion a year. But that competitor was working to improve on the GLP-1 agonist by adding additional function. The competitor was this medium-sized pharma company in a flyover state in the US, developing a drug that would not only act as a GLP-1 agonist, but also as a GIP, or glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide agonist. There are no tests at the end of this, guys. Don't worry about that. So the GLP-1 GIP dual agonist drug called Mounjaro was approved in 2022, would reach $7 billion in sales just 2 years later in 2024, and the treatment as a treatment for diabetes and obesity. Closely catching up to its competitor, the GLP-1 agonists are now projected to be the best-selling drug class of all time. You've probably guessed that the medium-sized competitor is Lilly, but maybe you haven't really fully appreciated the size of the impact. The market cap, Lilly's market cap, or the value of the whole company, in 2019 was around a little over $100 billion. In January of 2025, that market cap is worth more $750 billion. It's down a bit from its peak, but now Lilly is the largest pure-play pharma company in the world. Pretty impressive, right? But that's not the punchline of the story. In 1937, the descendants of Colonel Eli Lilly, the founder of Lilly, decided to set apart some of their wealth to establish a nonprofit whose purpose would be to support education, innovation, and religious practices in the state of Indiana. It is captive to Indiana. We now call that nonprofit the Lilly Endowment. The endowment is currently the largest single shareholder in Lilly, accounting for about 10% of the total ownership. With the increase in Lilly's market cap, current estimates put the value of the Lilly Endowment at about $70 billion, roughly the same size as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But it's captive to Indiana, meaning it has to spend its money here. Because the Lilly Endowment is a nonprofit, they must give away at least 5% of the average fair market value of their assets in a given year to comply with federal law. That means the endowment must give away more than $3 billion every year to entities within the state of Indiana. In 2023, Wabash College received a $25 billion gift from the Lilly Endowment to support a new community college and community collaboration initiative that will include the building of a new dining hall. So in the future, when you enjoy a burger, pizza, or beer in our new community space, we should thank the Gia Monster. And we should thank all of those along the way that were committed and creative in the developing GOPs from the venom of a lizard. Think of all the lawyers, physicians, patients, volunteers, security guards, janitors, architects, you name it, that worked so hard for so long to realize the full potential of this discovery. Not only are the patients better off, but so is our community. So as you think about what you want to do with your life, be whatever you want, but think about heading towards discovering innovation. Make it a part of your career goals. I believe that's where we get the biggest return. How do you start? By coming to the celebration of research tomorrow. Learn from your professors and classmates about what kind of research goes on in the world. Talk to alumni. Pro tip, ask them where they're from. Get out of your comfort zone. Maybe you'll find the internship that'll change your life. Maybe you'll find a mentor that will tell you about the perfect career for you that you've never even thought of. Maybe you'll take the next step to being the finance bro that helps fund the clinical trial that cures cancer. Maybe you'll be the patent attorney that files the patent for the drug that eliminates flu. These are hard things. It takes a village to do hard things. It takes a village that will always fight, always. Thank you.
A few final announcements. Tomorrow, the swim and dive team will compete at Illinois Wesleyan. Also tomorrow, track and field will travel to compete at Rose-Hulman. On Saturday, basketball will travel to Ohio to take on Hiram. Also on Saturday, volleyball will host IU East and Goshen. If you are interested in Rhineship, please stay after for a Q&A with the Sphinx Club. And lastly, it's been an honor serving you all up here for the past year. But now to introduce the new president of the Sphinx Club, Tanner Quackenbush.
Thank you. Now will you all please rise and join me in singing Old Wabash. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.